And we are live. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be discussing how to survive the college nightmare. And I am joined by Saddam Hussein. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, Mr. Populist. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, and I brought you on because you are a soul cert. You are also going through this battle that I've just entered of going through college. So, can you help us out? Start us out by the survival guide.
Yes, I will. I'll do the new Ned's Declassified Guide to Surviving Paz College with Dr. Zog Hussein. Um, I'll give you my background. I just got out of my undergrad probably a year and a half ago. I'm currently doing a master's program at the same university I did my undergrad in. I got a political science degree. Uh, didn't minor in anything. Pretty much just the usual political science stuff. Took Arabic for a while, for about 3 years. Part of that kind of flagship program. Did a bunch of independent studies with my professor, and yeah, pretty much didn't really encounter that much pause or zog, whatever you want to call it, during those. And then now that I'm a grad student and TA, it's a little bit more prevalent. But yeah, so that's my background, and I'll give you a few tips about like political science, or more broadly any kind of social science degree, if that's all right, Mr. Populist.
Yeah, that's all right. Go ahead.
All right. So, generally what you're going to be taking in in political science is a bunch of, quite frankly, bullshit courses. With You're going to be taking some American national government and some general like civics based courses. They don't really mean much in the end. They're all usually like 101 or 100 level courses. Um, as you get on, there's some more. There's like some 200 level classes, and I'm using my university for reference. There's some international relation classes, international politics, comparative politics, for instance. And then in that same 200 level vein, that's when you start getting your theory. So, God forbid you start with a theory, but excuse me, you don't get the theory until you at least enter theoretically in a sophomore or more advanced position. 300 level classes are generally your more American focused stuff, like campaigns and elections, or um, or the national party system, or broadly American history. And then finally, when you get to your 400 level classes, that's when you get some of the more fun stuff. It's like international politics, international security, global terrorism, international law, and then You also have your capstone and stuff like that. And along the way, in one of your courses, you're pretty much going to be taking an intro to like an intro writing course, where you're supposed to write like a some sort of preliminary paper that's gonna start getting you on the way. But generally, the classes that you're going to want to stay away from are pretty much most of them. The only ones that I would say are somewhat decent are the theory courses, but you're not going to get anything that would pretty much be helpful in our spheres. You're going to get some Aristotle and some Plato and Augustine and Aquinas, which have their merits. But much past that, it's pretty much just Nietzsche, Machiavelli, Marx, John Stuart Mill, Mary Wollstonecraft, and that's pretty much it. You'll be pretty much bored to death in your theory lectures, because your teachers are going to be boring, and you're going to be bored out of your mind with that kind of stuff. Um, as well, those sorts of classes where you actually discuss some readings in that context of where your teacher might say, okay, what's happening in Plato's Republic, what did Augustine mean when he was talking about the city of God and the city of man and stuff like that. um, those are going to be pretty much relegated to your theory courses. all your other classes are pretty much research oriented, as well as being paper writing courses, which is absolutely god awful. They want you to come up with some bullshit original research question that you can do over the course of 3 months, which no one takes seriously. It's pretty much just going to be what you can finish over a month, or what you can feasibly turn in after a few weeks of work. The focus is so much on original research that you've got no availability to look back and say, oh well, this if you want to look at some old research papers, you pretty much just need to look at them to see as a quote starting point, and you're just supposed to bullshit your way through the rest of it and maybe come up with some data that helps your point. But the political science department as a whole has been moving away from being a theory of governance and a theory of why people do stuff or why people act in politics, and more of a, let's just turn this into a scientific discipline and write papers all day and blow each other and talk about how many papers we write and stuff like that.
I think what you just mentioned there is pretty accurate, honestly. For a lot of these theory classes, you're like your communications, you're like a political theorist, and they usually are, of course, led by female professors. And most of their material, from what I'm going through right now, is pretty much just nonsense for the most part. Lots of kind of kabuki theater type things to write papers about.
Yep.
Type this theory or this political issue, or why this plant gives out a frequency, and why frequencies are why humanity runs, or something. This is actually true, so I went through. So I know this to be true. Or you'll just like watch a clip from a modern movie, and you'll give a quiz for 5 answers about what were the 5 things you watched in this clip.
Yeah, who was John Locke? What did he write? What is the second treatise of government? Stuff like that. And so pretty much you can sleep through most of these classes and pass with an A. It's not. They don't make the theory as interesting as it is and should be.
No, college is going to be a mix of 2 problems for people like us. Number 1 is obviously the pause, which is overwhelming. Number 2 is just going to be the boredom from the classes that you have to take, because no matter which degree you try to go through, like me, if you're trying to get a degree that actually in STEM that makes decent amount of money, actually do something productive in the world, and like 99% of the other college students, there's always going to be pause mandated in your degree just to make sure they get you too. So
Yep,
you're not going to be spared. You're not
you're
going to
gonna-
be spared from these classes.
Yep, you're going to have some sort of university studies credit. You're going to have a mandatory diversity class, whatever that means. I had to take an intercultural communication class, whatever that means. Watching some retarded movie about how some girl who's half Korean and half white decides to go back, and then she's all upset that her Korean family that she never met won't accept her and all this stuff. And it's just it's not intellectually stimulating enough. And then some of the professors are just hard-nosed, like if you don't do it in APA format, you're a goner. You've got, that's a 0 automatically. It's never consistent, because some teachers do not care and will just simply take whatever you write. And then others are such sticklers that it's never anything consistent in that respect.
Yeah, there is supposed to be consistency, but that's not true. It just depends on if your professor actually cares or not. Usually we more of the English-oriented classes that care about that kind of thing. Usually other classes, your intro classes, your more field-specific won't care that much for what I'm going through right now, my personal experience. However, your experience may vary. Again, you don't know what kind of college you'll get into once you get into the institution.
Yeah. Obviously be aware whenever you go to said institution, all the blue hairs, all the people, all the women who try to dress like men, all the who are probably going to be zipper tits soon, as Mr. Canones said. Um, be aware of your surroundings. You know, there's been some wording of pieces of paper stuck onto one woman's window for like the past 3 years that says "End racism now" or whatever, and I'm just waiting for it to come down, man. I'm waiting for racism to end too. It's gonna be a good day when it does, and when the Fahrenheit is instated. But yeah, it's just when you go into college, just be aware that you're gonna if you're someone who's more into our spheres, be aware that you're not alone, but it's pretty damn near close, you know, and you've got to suss out everyone else to make sure that you know you don't say something wrong or whatever. And I'll get into a little bit later some avenues of attack and how you might be able to find some professors who aren't completely paused or are at worst like centrists.
Yeah, that's going to be valuable to learn. And as you go through your journey, doing whatever degree or program that you want to, you're going to learn that the overwhelming majority of those people around you are just absolute products of violinism to its like fullest definition. Very few people to our intellectual caliber and worthy of talking to be honest. Most of them are going to be women, unfortunately. That's the case in my college that I'm going to right now. Vast majority are women. But you also need to be very careful because if you're going for something that actually matters, degree that's going to make you some money, you just have to go through the BS, just get the degree, get out of there. You want it to be done. However, you have to watch what you say because these are the foot soldiers of the regime, and they will turn you into the Gestapo on campus, you know, to get you banned or kick you out of the program, and that can hurt you if you're really far along in a degree that you actually want to go through. And if you're in debt, that's even worse. Then that might just kind of throw it down the drain. You're kind of left hung out to dry. So knowing who you can trust is very important.
Yeah, it certainly is, and you know, to keep with the military analogies for a minute, I myself have not served, don't have any intention to in this particular army. Maybe maybe someone else is in the future. Wink, wink. Um, you you have pretty much got to operate, to reiterate it once more, on a very low profile. You know there are some people who tell you just go and spout your beliefs, whatever they may be, misogynist. The say I hate all women. You should be take pilled or whatever. But I mean, if you don't want to be there, I mean that's a good way to get kicked out, quite frankly. So if you want to just prove something, but it is the thing of would you rather keep your head down and just try to make some money for yourself, and then when things come around, then spring out like La Résistance in France in the 40s, or would you rather be the defiant martyr who goes out and kicking and screaming and being dragged away for not taking the vaccine or not calling her ma'am or whatever. I mean, don't get me wrong, we need both people, but I would much sooner see our guys weave their ways into different positions and not have themselves outed, because then as soon as you do that, then the eye's on everyone else who's even marginally right of center.
Yeah, the eye of Sauron will be on you. Anyone who is part of your friend group will be target number one on the hit list of every organization on campus, because every organization is an apparatus of the future regime, and the people who are going to be running them. All of them are organs of it in some way or another. And there's obviously going to be exceptions to that. The people in them aren't. Every single one of them isn't a part of the enemy's regime. However, people running them are. And so that's all that really matters here.
Yeah. So on that note, how to find some sort of people that you can not go insane with. One of your best bets is to join some sort of club. I myself never did Greek life. It never really appealed to me. But if that's your sort of thing, that is somewhat, and that's at least a semi non-political group that you can join and at least hang out with some bros and either drink beer or get get hinch. Um, that's a good one. Finding just a general group of guys you can hang out with is something that's very much needed. Not even just to talk about politics, but just to keep yourself sane. If you can just bullshit on at the end of the day and have a couple drinks or whatever, it's that's very much important. Uh, obviously there's very obvious ways to tell who would be against you and who would be for you, or who might even be sympathetic to you. You can pretty easily suss that out with physiognomy checks, or just quite simply if they're receptive to talk about subjects that the teachers aren't. For instance, I had a professor come up. I have no idea what his political background is, and he was teaching me Arabic the whole time, and I did a bunch of independent studies with him, and we happened to get on a conversation of, well, are dictators in the Middle East really that bad? Pros, cons, whatever. From that, we went on to colonialism wasn't an entirely bad thing. It had some bad aspects, um, stuff like that. If you can develop a rapport with a teacher that you can see having some inklings of being one of our guys, do so. Spend as much time with that teacher as possible. Email them, hang out with them. Don't like go live with them or whatever, but don't because most of these teachers are extremely excited to see someone or anyone who actually A, either goes to office hours, or B, will email them regularly and will actually show an interest in their work. That's a very good way to make a connection, not just for surviving college, but also just for finding somewhat of a mentor. I've had several mentors while I've been in college, men and women, that are that I know I can go to today and talk to about pretty much any subject. You don't broach certain subjects with certain ones because of whatever underlying ties, but you it's imperative that you find some way to stay sane. And I'll reiterate, those ways to stay sane are: find a good group of guys, do some sort of hobby, non-political. It can be basket weaving, or if you want to get them into that, or go into the gym or whatever, and finding some sort of professor that you can somewhat openly discuss difficult subjects with.
Yeah, all those things that you just mentioned are really great things that you need to do to keep sane. Because, as I will remind everybody, this is firmly enemy ground. So you will be surrounded 24/7 by propaganda, whether it's on the billboards, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a student, or whether it's just the way you have to write things. Because there's certain things you cannot say or talk about when writing a paper or doing a blog, which I have to do. So please keep that in mind.
Yeah, you will very often get in discussion boards with people who, and professors, especially if you're doing some sort of social science, we'll choose particular incendiary topics, gay rights, Confederate monuments, whatever. They will choose that, and they will certainly take notice of dissenting opinions. Um, I had one professor when I was writing my senior project. Um, my project was on do people with children vote? Do parents with children vote more or they vote less? Because is it harder to get to the ballot box because because they don't have the time, or are they more likely to vote because they have a vested interest in it? And he stated in the um, comments, he was like, make sure you're very explicit about everything, define your terms, etc. So, unbeknownst to me, in 2020, 2021, I defined what a woman was. And I was like, yeah, it's just an adult woman, female, blah, 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 can give birth, the right-leaning answer or whatever. And I took notice when he was like, yeah, that's not really necessary. That was, I can see you're trying to be funny, but blah blah blah. And I was, you take notice of that. You take notice of what professors are going to call you out on stuff like that, and what professors are saying behind closed doors.
Yeah, take notice of the red flags because it will pretty much clue you in into who and who cannot be reasoned with. That pretty much will kind of narrow out the circle of people who are potential candidates to help keep you sane. Like help make some friends, friend group to just hang out with, discuss things that aren't insane. Because a lot of the men who do go in some of these fields, especially like the more masculine fields like engineering and such, programming, a lot of those men, if you like get to know them and open up, they tend to be on our spheres. If you will notice, a lot of the people in my classes, they look like potential candidates for that. So I will just say, it depends on your major. If you're going to a human-centric, sorry, I can't speak. If you're going into a female-centered degree, then yeah, it's going to be overwhelmingly progressive. However, if you go into an overwhelmingly, at least majority men, kind of centered degree, that is a lot better of an option, I will say.
Yeah, and you can suss those out pretty easy. The STEM fields are going to be masculine.
Humanities
And
are going to be feminine.
yeah, the humanities are going to be feminine for the most part. I mean, you're going to find some overlap here and there. Maybe more of the men like political science or law, and the women are more in like the psychology, sociology kind of field. But also another way to get to know what sort of opinions your professor has is to first research them. Because I'm sure if they've gotten to be an associate professor of some sort, they've had to publish some sort of book or journal article or something. And so from that, you can pretty much look at their research area and kind of ascertain what their goals are, like, or what their feelings on certain subjects are. Because there's there's two professors that I have in mind with this. One of which was the comparative politics professor, who made us read a book about Putin. It was it might have been Glenn Greenwald book, but it was some 2012 book about how oppressive Putin was and all these riots that had gone on underneath him. And they talked about the Pussy Riot and the all female band or whatever, and the how Putin kind of came to power. But in talking with her, even if you just prodded her just a little bit, you'll find that she absolutely adored Putin, not for the reasons of, oh, he's based trad authoritarian man, but that, I don't know, she's very obsessed with those types of leaders, because she was similarly obsessed with Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela, and said that they were just somewhat mismanaged and that socialism wasn't the problem.
No, that's actually a very good clue. Also look at their assignments they assigned to you. Pay attention to what they say in their lectures, because that will give you a clue as to if they're actually curious or open to possibly right wing opinions or ideas. If they open their lecture with things like "I love science" type of rhetoric, that's a red flag to know. Okay, you can't really have a conversation with this professor. So let's try another one.
Yeah, there's another professor in my department who he teaches Asian politics. He's a Chinaman, and he somebody wanted to mention Mao's famine and Mao's kill count, to which he was thoroughly upset and said that the numbers were lies, and that they were misrepresented. And he didn't say Mao was a great guy. Now he was just disputing the numbers claim. So that's, you can also suss out not particularly who your enemies are, but who might be particularly opposed to the current regime by some of these sorts of measures, strange bedfellows and all that stuff.
Definitely another clue as to potential friends you could make in college is kind of just physiognomy check, as you mentioned, but also, do they look like they're a product of the system? Do they
Mhm.
look? Do they have colored hair? Are they fats? Are they trans? These are automatic disqualifiers immediately. Then you tend to look at the more normal kind of white men. Then you kind of suss that out further. Okay, do they talk about interesting things? They bring up interesting conversations sometimes, kind of on the nose to the professor, where we're on total agreement with the I love science, materialism, kind of progressive kind of spew. If they're totally online with that and never question anything, then that's also a major red flag.
Definitely. It's just these are just general tips and advice. These aren't mutually exclusive. You might find right wing trans like Evelyn Grant that hops around AA spheres and with Scrump. You might find some fat slob who's secretly based or whatever. It's not mutually exclusive, but you generalize your expectations and know that generally these people aren't who you want to associate with, and if they happen to share your views, then you can reevaluate. It's the old thing about you might have been you had one bad experience with a black man or whatever, so now you think all black people are going to jump you or whatever. Obviously not the case, but you're still wary, right? That doesn't mean that everyone that's going to come up to you is going to do so, but you're still aware of that situation. Um, yeah, there also to go back to a different point that American Populist was making. These people that are in the system are complete dregs. They are the low. They're pretty much low IQ. Um, they are not there for any good reason. They're there to get some sort of degree so that they can say they got one and then move on to the next stage of their life, whether that be, being a child lesbian or waiting until they're 35 and run through to get married, or, transitioning to become a woman because you can't get laid, or just becoming fat and overweight. One of my classes that I taught or helped teach um, was going through basic history, World War One, and the professor asked the students to list the Central Powers and the Entente, and what sort of camps they were in and stuff like that. And to which I hear one girl reply that aren't they all just fascist? Talking about the Central Powers, and so these people are completely indoctrinated in the ideology of the anti-fascist. Obviously, everything that's non-democratic or non-democratic meaning not what we say is good and not the globo homo stuff, then yeah, you can again, people are very open. The people that you need to know to avoid are very open about their beliefs. It's the people that aren't very open that you need to kind of suss out a little easier.
Yeah, it's the more closeted types people, the people who be potential candidates for being dissidents or at least open to our sort of ideas, or not on board the mainstream gay agenda, essentially. That's all you need to know. Essentially, it's friend enemy distinction, fundamentally. Who is friend, who is not. And usually our enemies will make that very abundantly clear, especially on their own home territory, such as college.
Um, yeah, that's if you've got any other questions for me. Oh well, I can go a little further. Um, Maybe some other spheres you can go into, not just specifically um, STEM fields or stuff like that. You can find some sort of I call them illiberal languages or somewhat. You can find something kind of like Russian or Arabic or maybe German at a stretch, depending on what the teacher is and if she came from West or East Germany or whatever, or whoever they came from. But you can those are very good ways to those are also very good ways to get into our kind of sphere, because whenever I started out, I was pretty much classical libertarian when I was in college, and through Arabic, I found a more rightist tradition, reading some 14th century scholars and reading through the language and not being exposed to something that is not being exposed to a more liberal language like French or Spanish or something like that.
No, yeah, that's a very good idea, actually. Some things are going to be just more inherently right wing. Some things are just going to be more inherently left wing, such as where origins of the pause originate, such as the French Revolution, for as example, or Spain, the
Yeah,
conquest of South America.
yeah. And you'll have to take a language. I mean, if you didn't go to if you didn't go to if you didn't take enough languages in high school or whatever, you'll have to take some sort of language requirement in college, and they won't all have Arabic or Russian or German or whatever. So, those are good options, but there are those further down the list. Spanish. You could look at it from a Francoist angle or something like that. You could look through French at a Napoleonic angle or something. Um, Maybe Turkish would be good, or maybe Hindi could be something that you could look into if you were going to look at it through a BJP lens or something like that.
See if your college offers some of these more specialized language classes, because those tend to be a little bit more right wing, shall we say, than the more mainstream ones that you all hear about, which are overwhelmingly pause. But something you mentioned earlier about these just dregs of society, when she used that word fascist. This is something I talked about with Thomas, and he said democracy doesn't mean anything. You could just substitute the word for democracy for good and anything else as bad. And that's all that democracy essentially means at its basic core now. So that's all these people understand it by.
Yeah, they don't understand any sort of historical context. And don't get me wrong, you don't want them to understand Athenian direct democracy versus a Roman Republican model versus a Swiss confederal model or an English parliamentarian model. Whatever. You don't want them to know. Quite frankly, that's better left to people who are more capable and who are more worthy of those ideas being submitted to. You don't. It destroys the meaning of the word when democracy ironically becomes a mass used word, as does the word fascist, Nazi, racist, all those sorts of words. The expanding definition of all of these. Obviously, this is not some new insight. They've been talking about this since 2017, 2018. That the expanding definition of these words essentially renders them useless, and so you got to find some new word to characterize the opposition, the other, the evil, those who are ontologically evil.
Yeah, usually those people, their characterizations are pretty inherently basic and pretty kind of stupid in a way. They don't finally understand what they're talking about, so you shouldn't take these people seriously at all or consider them any legitimate threat in any sense of the word. They're just kind of just products of the system, essentially. That's all you should regard them as. Aristotle's natural slaves is a thing that I like to bring up that we tend to forget about.
Well, exactly. I mean, when the whole business with Ukraine started kicking off last year, some Candace Owens, net negative. I'll be the first to say, but some little shit lib in class was talking about Candace Owens said that the only reason Ukraine exists is because of Russia. Ha ha! Isn't that so stupid? And it was actually right around the time that AM Apostolic Majesty had just released his Ukraine video, and so if you have even a modicum of knowledge about basic history aside from 1945 onwards, you're pretty much like a god to these people. You could spit out random facts about Tokugawa Japan and ancient Greece and the Babylonians and maybe throwing in some sort of like pre-Napoleonic era about the French Revolution and the Ancien regime, and I swear to God, they will treat you like you've just fallen from outer space. They physically cannot comprehend that there is any history outside of the Nuremberg paradigm, which Thomas is also writing about.
No, they truly can't because, again, the education system of this country isn't designed to do that. It's designed to produce these people. It's designed to produce more natural slaves who don't know their history. Beyond that, most people don't actually study or into this kind of stuff like we are, so they don't know even 1% of the stuff we do. Even just having a cursory knowledge of Ukraine and Russia would give you a much better understanding of the current conflict than what these people have, which is basically nothing but what the mainstream media has told them, which is mostly lies and misunderstandings and characterizations of the actual history between these two countries.
Yeah, and they'll believe anything that comes out of the MSM narrative.
There's a reason we call them NPCs. I will say the NPC meme did get it right. These people are updated every once in a while. That meme is pretty accurate. You know, where they swap out the chip with the next new thing. And the new thing is such a great term, by the way, for it, describing the updates very well. And you can see it happen in real time as the
Yeah,
narrative shifts.
yeah, it certainly is. I mean, these people are nothing more than meant to go in some sort of factory and produce goy slop and and go home to watch Netflix and sports ball. Quite frankly, there's not much more that can be done for them.
Sadly not. But let's get into some more just kind of fun things. So this is a chill stream, although we did give some practical advice here for those in college like I am at the moment. So, Saddam, have you ever run into the situation where you're in a classroom with students and there's it looks like a tranny, but you're not sure what it is exactly? And you know if you dare say a gender that you're immediately going to be yelled at and under suspicion. So what do you do in this circumstance? I'm just curious.
Well, Ampop, I actually just had this experience this week. In 4.5 years in college, this is the first time a student, has actually said that my pronouns are they, them, theirs, da 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 da, whatever. And let me paint a picture for you. This is a smallish classroom, 20 people in there, mostly women. A couple guys in there, a Pajit, myself, a Russian, and that's pretty much it, as well as the teacher. And you see this 4'11", maybe 5 foot on a good day, little goblinoid creature just walk into the room, backwards cap, somewhat greasy black hair, very short, round face, almost like a halfling goblin hybrid, right? And some little gauges in the ears, a flannel shirt, some sort of gay little band shirt, maybe Black Veil Brides or some other emo shit that I still am into, but I would still rag on for the sake of this argument. Some shorts and some Vans, right? And you look for just a second, and pretty much built like a little bowling ball, a little heavy in the front, so it might be some tits. Nothing else to be had anywhere else. And you look and you're like, that could either be a very small, like Danny DeVito type man, or it's a mid to lower grade woman who wants some attention and just wants to have some friends for once. And it generally is on the latter in that certain case. So after I've painted that repulsing picture, have you had any such engagements, Mr. Populist?
I've had to engage with them, although there is a product, this absolute specimen, who isn't an Adonis by any stretch of the word. in my intro to engineering class I have in the mornings, and I just look at it, I guess, and I'm just like, it kind of looks like a dyke, but I don't know. It could be a tranny. It could be a guy. It
Mm.
could be a woman too. And it's probably as best not to. If you can avoid it, then just avoid the conversation because again, all it takes is one mishap, and you're on the target list immediately.
So,
So,
so I'll ask,
mhm.
what sort of voice does this entity have? Is it a nasally? Is it a raspy? Or is it a attempt at a deep voice? You know how women will try to lower their voice with minutes, and it's always easy to tell. Is it any of those three, or is it something entirely different? Some sort of Cthulhu-esque voice, gurgling.
I would say nasally. From what I remember, this person hasn't talked a lot though in this class. So I really could not tell you,
Hmm.
although I assume nasally just by physiognomy. Again,
Hmm.
physiognomy tells a lot.
It certainly does. What about the walk? Does the walk, or is that like what's the word? Androgynous. Is it androgynous? What sort of clothing does it wear? Anything revealing or anything which you could tell?
Not revealing, girlish kind of hair though. That looks
Hmm.
kind of manly frame. Very
Hmm.
like gay type
Hmm.
clothing. Kind of signaling that with the rainbow type colors and the garbage band that I've never heard of. That is garbage probably. I'm going to assume so
Right.
because this person likes it, so I immediately know it's bad.
Hmm.
I would assume androgynous,
Okay.
most likely.
Hmm. I would err on the side of it being a woman because that's usually who it is in this case. But try to get paired up with this thing in a group for one of your classes and be like, hey, I'm Ampop, pronouns he him, and then you can he him his, and then you can suss out, and then you can act like a friend, and then turn on this creature when the need suits you.
I'll definitely report back once I figure it out. Give you guys a report to figure out what I've found about this specimen here. But another thing I've noticed about the campus I go to is it's majority female, which has pros and cons. Obviously, for
Hmm.
single like me, it provides a great base for potentially finding a girlfriend. Hopefully, potentially, but a good chunk of those are pretty much undateable because they're either you don't know what they are,
Mm-hmm.
so you just like don't know, or they're fat. That's it.
Yeah.
It's either one of the two. It's either fat, pretty much a rejection, or it's a mid or above, or
Hmm.
it's a tranny type thing. It's one of those types of three. I
Right.
don't know. Do you think there's another category I'm missing here?
Um. Let's see. Fat, or generally dysmorphic, I would say.
Yes.
Generally dysmorphic is the group, and then you're pretty much mid and above, and then your other undatables, whether they be trannies or if you have a racial component to that, whatever that may be. Um, no, that's pretty much it. You'll those are pretty much the groups of women you'll find on campus. Um, yeah, I mean the mids. I mean, you're honestly shoot for a mid. I mean, if you're just trying to bone your way through college, I mean, obviously you'll hit a mid eventually. They're not all going to be tens, um, but if you're looking, I guess in this college stream, you can talk about quote girlfriend material. Um, Shoot for the girl who is this is going to be like the old Hallmark channel, and I guess some girl who's somewhat bookish but not in the weird like I read Robin DiAngelo type, but just like trashy romance novels or just like whatever trash they decide to throw out, in these past 20 years. Because I mean, there's been nothing good written since probably 1987. I'd say that's a random year, but um, pretty much imagine your type. It's probably going to be some mid some mid girl who's somewhat bookish, um, thin, thin or average weight. Obviously, we don't date fatties here. That's a no. And ideally, if you can find a girl who's non-political, then that's the best bet. But keep in mind you're going to find a whole lot more that are at least left of center, if not complete raging socialist. And some of the good-looking ones are raging socialist. And you will find even fewer good-looking right-wing women, at least on the college campuses. If you widen your berth to places like gyms and churches and stuff like that, those are other good places to find uh, cute or attractive right-wing women. But no, I mean, you can look at the girl, and if you can, if she's cute enough to live like that, I mean, don't get me wrong. This is me speaking from someone who's already got a girlfriend, so I just look, whatever. But just take into account that she's not going to be perfect in a variety of reasons. But if you can find one who you can mostly go around with, and you can mostly lead around like Red Hawk would suggest. And I'm no red pill expert. You better go to him, or Rolo Tomasi or Patrice O'Neill for someone like that, or for better information on that, I should say. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with mids. I mean, most women are mids, quite frankly.
Yeah, the men's tend to be the best candidates actually for GF material, and maybe even potentially wife material. But you definitely have to sift through the garbage because, again, lots of garbage at colleges. So you got to sift through, and then you get to the best layer of what you got to work with. So,
Well,
that
exactly.
kind of nerdy type, not into political books, is probably the best candidate.
Yeah, you're not gonna find a philosophicat type woman, or Alex Kashuta just sitting around on your campus. I mean, if you do, I mean, good for you. I mean, if she's more right wing than you, I mean, that's a pretty good deal, I'd say. But you need to always strive to be more. You always got to be more radical than her. But yeah, I mean, pretty much, yeah. This is me talking from experience. Pretty much, find a girl who you would be fine with settling down with. I mean, if you want to fuck around, then you want to spin plates like Red Hawk does. I mean, that's all you. I'm talking for my personal taste. Find a girl you can imagine settling down with, and go from there, build a relationship, and slowly bring her over to your side. Set the frame, and don't take any shit from that.
Also, something very important I need to mention for the guys watching, which, I mean, who am I kidding? It's going to be, my audience is 100% men, which is very based, I will say. For the Zoomers listening, and potentially millennials, do not, under any circumstances, pick as your wife a woman who's pro-abortion, pro-baby murder, or a progressive or feminist. That is a deal breaker. Do not. It doesn't matter if she's an 8 or 9. Do not do it. It is not worth your kids being potentially indoctrinated, potential divorces. We all know how this goes. And those are the types of women who initiate that most of the time. It's not worth it, guys. So whatever you do not pick a woman who has these inherent progressive feminist type traits. Exactly. Who is firmly in that camp.
Exactly. If she's slightly left of center, I mean, you can obviously change those opinions.
There's something to work with there.
Exactly. I mean,
the radical there is not.
Yes. You are not going to save some. You cannot save her. You cannot fix her. I've tried many times with several women that you cannot fix them. But yeah, I mean, if you want to be with those women, it's a pump and dump kind of thing. It's not she is not even wife nor girlfriend material. She is no better than that, because she's just going to kill your kid anyway in that context, either metaphysically or physically, or both.
Yeah, that's an automatic deal breaker. I mean, it should be for those young men, I assume, watching the channel who want to start a family, or if you just want a GF. So it's not worth the risk, especially because the courts are overwhelmingly feminist, are going to favor the women, and basically 99% of divorces and things like that. So you want to sell yourself up for success in life, and extremist females do not suit that.
Correct. It's sometimes you have to go through hardship. I'm not gonna lie. I myself went through some hardship with several women who were raging feminists, and I was not as sure in my beliefs at that time. But you know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. All that bullshit. Um, you know, you can come out on the other side of it better. You know, obviously you'd prefer not to have to take those hard knocks, but if you've got to, you know, definitely make sure you learn from them. You cannot just keep repeating the same mistakes. You can't keep going for the same type of girl and saying, you know, I wonder why I'm just attracted to all these raging feminists. And, you know, after 3 months, she wants me to get a vasectomy and she doesn't want any kids and, you know, all this other random shit. But
Yeah, best not to put yourself through that. But I will say most men will probably have to go through that just to learn the lesson. Which, again, if you're going through that, guys, just go through it. It's best
yeah,
to deal with it now, later, rather than later when you have a kid, which is even worse. Then you're kind of stuck with life, pretty much. So
yeah,
better to
exactly.
avoid that at all cost if you can.
Yes, you're either stuck with the child support or the alimony, or you know, or you've basically just got to abandon your kid, which is something I would assume most men in our spheres would not want to do, um, just
No,
given the inherent nature.
that's a last case scenario, not ideal in any way
No.
whatsoever. So I think that kind of rumbling a little bit. I think I'll kind of close off the stream. Just recap some of the advice I gave for those who will be listening in the future. Some of the main points that me and Saddam brought up were: number one, make friends to help keep you sane through the insane amounts of propaganda, and I mean insane, and it will only get worse as you go forward in time. Propaganda help keep you sane. Sift through the people, see potential candidates, maybe professors, potential mentors, and be careful with your choices of women. Feminists, progressives, pro-abortion, automatic disqualifiers. No matter her beauty, does not matter. You have to think about the long term, guys. So those are the three important things you need to survive college as a Zoomer. So
Yes, we are high time preference men over here, and you can endure short term pain for long term success.
definitely, that's what most men should be doing. So Dom, do you have anything you would like to show before we close out the stream today?
I don't yet have a YouTube channel that will be coming. I dread to say soon. I still got a lot of research to do and a lot of other stuff to get my ducks in a row before I can even start to do that. Other than that, I post occasionally on Twitter at Saddam number one. That's the Saddam Hussein, the Indefatigable, on Twitter. Not followed by anyone in, well, I will, no, I'm sorry. I am followed by several important people, American Populist being one, Paul Fahrenheit being another, Jay Burden being another, and several of our guys in this sphere, Barack Obama as well.
And with that being said, guys, remember, it's always darkest before the dawn. Remember, the sun rises at the end. We're all going to get through this, one way or another. With that being said,